That was quite the FP1 and FP2, with one man dominating the timesheets and putting in some furious laps in that beautiful red Scarlet Ferrari. We had Red Bull struggling again, but we know how it goes with them in practice and then how they end up performing in the qualifying and the race pace. Alonso and Aston Martin are actually doing good. Lance wasn't bad as well, but we also saw Lewis, who really jumped timesheets and was quite impressive in a non-updated Mercedes. There's some updates that I want to go about specifically with Mercedes and something interesting they're running here at Monaco, which seems to be a test between the two drivers. We got to go over the timesheets and why Ferrari has a potential problem that Leclerc is actually worried about. And can no one truly catch Leclerc in qualifying, because it seems like he's a step ahead of the rest going into Saturday. Wanted to thank you guys for the recent support before getting into the video. You guys are outstanding. Makes my day. Genuinely, you guys are the greatest community I can ask for. In the comments, liking, enjoying every single video. Just makes me happy, so thank you for being around. If you're new, I'd love if you'd subscribe here. It'd mean a lot to me. But let's get started with the Monaco analysis. So as I said, Mercedes brought some updates here, and they're not what I expected. We know that this front wing was talked about so much in the beginning of the season with the Y250 Vortex. What was it going to do with this little legality wire, which is carbon fiber, I know, but that was what it was being called in the beginning of the season. They now have taken that away, updated their Monaco front wing, and it is only placed on George currently, and Lewis is running the older spec that is from Imola and really from the beginning of the season. With that also being said, there is a updated rear wing that Russell is running and Hamilton is not. But with this front wing, there are a couple things that have changed, and it's not just the elements on the wing, but the actual wing end plate itself and the actual cutout that's done into this wing is different to what we've seen on the rest of the grid, trying to promote more outwash towards that outer part of the car, with a cutout on the first element rather than it being all towards the back. This is new and interesting, and it seems like Mercedes always has some type of innovations for these front wings. It's been a key upgrading ground for them from 22 to now, and the trend seems to be continuing. Now, Russell was on the back foot. In FP1, he did pretty well, but in FP2, Lewis was the man. Lewis was the guy running it, and was the only guy actually closely competitive with Leclerc. Now, yes, we did have Alonso closely competitive as well, but if we look at the timesheets, we can see with Leclerc that he pretty much had the jump on everybody but Lewis for almost about 5/10. And there's more in this lap, by the way, as well. Now, important things to note here. In this lap, Leclerc was definitely running the highest engine mode. And while it doesn't play a huge difference, it does help out with the straights, giving you a little bit of time. And we don't really know if Alonso, we know for a fact Verstappen isn't running the highest engine mode. I will show you that in a little bit because it's quite obvious, at least Red Bull is a bit of sandbagging right now. Alonso was running a high engine mode. Do we know if it's the highest? Not sure. With Leclerc, we saw that they put that engine mode into the highest, but there is still more pace to be extracted. This was run on a 4 to 5 lap old soft tire and still was putting in better sector times looking into it. Now, this is only about a 10th off of the qualifying pace last year, which just tells me that these cars are much faster, the downforce is grippier, and it's going to be a very entertaining Monaco. I feel like McLaren didn't show their hand as well. We still have a lot more to be extracted from them. Piastri was running really quick up until they put him on just a medium tire for race pace simulation. And if you look at how each team ranked through the sectors, it's dominated by the team in red. Ferrari, 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 and the ideal lap puts them pretty much 4/10 on Mercedes. But that's not going to be the whole story going into qualifying. There's much more to talk about than just that. This is where I think that Red Bull is sandbagging just a bit. You look at Verstappen, a 279. Now, that's 9 kilometers down on science. And Leclerc had a 285. But to even be 6 kilometers down in a Red Bull, I think Perez is more representative of what they're probably going to run on the load. Maybe Verstappen wasn't running a high enough engine mode, because there's definitely much more pace here in Max. And he was struggling with the car, saying it was like a kangaroo jumping up and down. We saw so many drivers hitting the wall, tapping it. This is common, but no crashes, which was actually quite the shock in Monaco. If you look at the individual sector times between each driver, Leclerc dominating sector 1 by almost 2/10. This was a good sector for both Hamilton and Alonso, but none of them put in their best sectors into sector 1. There's still more pace to be extracted from both Lewis and Alonso and Verstappen, and this could be due to higher engine modes for Leclerc. Sector 2, he's up 2/10 again, was going faster at some point as well, Alonso also did have a faster one at some point, but he was quick here as well. The Aston is actually looking really good in these slow speed corners. Sector 2 does have the slowest speeds in the whole lap in Monaco. Now we can see here in Sector 3 the difference between like Ferrari and Aston Martin. Aston Martin definitely struggling in Sector 3. Verstappen didn't do too bad, but with Leclerc, this car can ride curbs really well. And I think that is where the emphasis goes for Ferrari and why they're doing so well here in Monaco. They're riding those curbs and bumps super well. Now, while Charles was aggressive, even asking the engineer how aggressive he should be in turn 5, felt like he was losing the car, this car is planted, and you can see that the front of the car is doing exactly what Leclerc wants. It's exactly what he wants in a car. He wants a little bit of an oversteery car where he can feel the front, move the rear part of the car to position it in the correct spots exactly how he likes it. Leclerc looked so comfortable, and he always does in Monaco. This seems to be his track when it comes to qualifying, but the luck has never been there, and actual mistakes from Leclerc as well. But then this is where the issue arises for Leclerc. This is where he was worried and saying that the actual pace on the car was quite bad, using different wording than what I just said. If you look at the long runs from F1 Big Data, you can see there's a huge disparity between long runs, and the actual timing is not what you should look into. But you can see where tire degradation is happening because these laps are further away from the others. And Leclerc was pointing out that their race pace is quite bad. Now, Carlos wasn't bad, he was quite consistent. And we have to remember also, for most of these, they're under 10 laps. It's not going to be very accurate to what we see in the race. And race pace isn't the most important thing, but for like a P1 and P2, if Verstappen's on Leclerc's tail the whole entire time, that undercut is open, and that's where Monaco gets important. The undercut strategy, getting the drivers from behind, it's not in the overtaking. So if Max or whoever's second can be right up on Leclerc's tail, he can potentially lose that P1 even if he had an outstanding qualifying. And that is where he's worried with the car, so the setup might have to change. They might have to sacrifice something in qualifying. This could be a potential problem, especially since that Red Bull seemed to have been sandbagging a bit when you look at the engine pace. They're not far from it. I know it looks like that right now, but don't count them out. Just like we saw in Imola, where we were talking about them struggling, this team always seems to flip it around right in the good moments. They are struggling over the curbs and bumps, which happened in Singapore and last year as well. We can see Max visibly struggling with the car. As he said, you can't even see the turn going to turn 3. We saw that on Sergio Perez as well. But it's hard to doubt this team. You know how good they are. I do want to go over real fast to track dominance though. Where was that Ferrari so strong to be gaining so much pace? Now this also matters on ERS deployment, which by the way, Verstappen was struggling with a little bit of ERS deployment. So that's probably why he's down on that 279 in comparison to what we've seen with other drivers. It wasn't going out for him as well, but maybe we can estimate around the 283 like Perez. That still wouldn't have put him in the top 3 with these guys. We see going into turn 1 that the Aston Martin is doing well, same as 2023. Alonso was actually really good in sector 1 last year. He is this year as well, almost taking the whole entire first sector, but Leclerc is right there behind him, and I think that's why he ends up actually edging out that first sector. Now ending off sector 1, 4 to 5, you can see Lewis gains a little bit more pace here, but then Alonso ends up getting it back again. Again, Leclerc goes through the slowest corner in Monaco with a little bit more pace than the others. Lewis uses probably a little bit more deployment in that tunnel, but then towards the end of it, Leclerc ends up gaining pace again, which could be engine mode dependent. But Lewis, the late braking king that he is, ends up doing really well into 11, then into 12, 14, 15, 17, and 18. This guy dominates. He does so well here, Leclerc. That sector 3 is magic, I gotta say. It looked amazing on the onboards. These are obviously the best camera angles we're going to get throughout the whole entire season, but Charles is on it. It's going to be a really tough qualifying to take from Leclerc. It seems like it's his to win, but the race pace is a tricky story considering he's complaining about it, was visibly mad to Vasseur. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Ferrari and will they take the victory. I hope so, because I would like to see Leclerc win. I would love to see Max also come back. It's going to be quite the exciting ride. Hopefully Alonso can really go on this pace and be up in the podium positions. That's quite a lot from him to get out of the car. It does look better though. I will say he didn't put in the best laps. He still has more pace, but so does Leclerc, so does Lewis, so does Verstappen. It's going to be fun. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. We're in for a unpredictable Monaco per usual. And these practices and qualifying are going to be amazing. So thank you so much for the support on the channel. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.